Good morning and welcome to today's webinar, 5 Best Practices of Big Sales. I'm Rob Oates, Chairman of the II-ABCAL Emerging Leaders Committee. With me today is Tom Searcy, Chief Executive Officer of Big Hunt Sales. Tom is a nationally recognized author, speaker, and foremost expert in large account sales. His method of unlocking explosive growth were developed through years of real-world successes. For today's webinar, we have muted your phones to eliminate background noises. You can ask questions during the webinar by writing through the right-hand navigation area and go to Meetings. All questions will be addressed at the end. Tom?
Good morning. Thanks, Rob, and thanks, David, and thanks for the opportunity to address the group who will be hopefully all in attendance at InsureFest 2014 in San Francisco on November 11th. I said November 11th, but actually we're going to be out there November 6th, so sorry about that. But I'm just glad for the chance to talk to everybody. We've had several webinars, a lot of great participation, and all of it is around this idea of how do we land larger and larger sales. Now, when we're in session out in San Francisco, I'm going to bring out some very key techniques, tactics, and ideas around the core large account sale model, specifically for the trusted advisor, the professional services person who's selling out in the marketplace. It's different than selling equipment. It's different than selling other kinds of services that might be out there, or manufacturing or whatever. And we have to embrace and understand that our roles in sales, when we're selling in this particular area, have to use some different kinds of ideas and techniques. I want to talk today, though, and I have about 20 minutes to do so before we open up for questions and answers, about the 5 best practices of big sales as it relates to overall what you might be doing. But before I do that, I do want to talk about some of the myths of fast growth organizations. My own background includes having run 4 fast growth companies that were either startups that went to $200 million in 4 years, or went from $10 million to $100 million in annual revenues, and did that in less than 5 years. And I've had a chance to work with about 700 companies on growing their businesses. And so I've seen lots of good approaches of companies, of groups who've tried to grow quickly, and they've followed some bad patterns. I want to tell you the bad patterns before I tell you what the good structures are. Bad pattern number 1, it's a myth, and that is that we can hire our way to growth. And I like to talk about it as the rock star approach. We try to go hire the rock star person, just has these amazing qualities. We use a variety of kind of testing tools. They could be predictive index, they could be Myers-Briggs, they could be DISC. There's all sorts of tools that are used out there. And we look for that rock star individual, and we hope that by bringing them in, we're going to just see this remarkable growth in our sales. Or secondly, what I would refer to as the Me Too approach, which is we get somebody who is either running that firm or is, we look at our best sales rep that's in there and we say, let me see if I can't find a younger version of that particular person, mentor them up and get them going. But if your approach to growing your business is to hire people that are either just like you or rock stars, I have historically seen this to be an unsuccessful model. Most of us find that when we hire, we get a third of folks who are not going to make it and are not a good fit, a third who are average and candidly a little less than what we had hoped them to be, and then a third of them that do very, very well. The problem is that when we hire the third, it's not the third that we thought was going to be phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It's usually some mixture of the other folks along the way. So I think one of the myths for growth is that hiring will fix the problem. The second one is what is myth 2, which is that activity is going to be the approach. Now, I'll tell you, activity is where CRMs have done a great job of selling people in the United States and companies and company owners that if I get more activity, I'm going to get more sales. And then if I have better reports and can study more closely the activities of individuals out there, if they make more calls and knock on more doors and send out more letters and do more email campaigns, in fact, I'm going to get better performance. And so what happens is I just get this whole buzzing amount of effort out of people, and I believe that more in the top of the funnel means more in the bottom of the funnel. Historically, what I've found is that as you look at that kind of performance model, you can get a lot more activity, but if you've got a sophisticated, specific type of custom-built product or service, like many of you do on the phone right now, where you're tailoring the offer to your end customer, what happens is that you start to wear out your partners in the process because you're putting a bunch of junk through the process, and pretty soon they stop taking your phone calls. They don't respond to your emails as quickly. You don't get your quotes back as rapidly. You're not able to go ahead and get the underwriting to work as well because they're saying to themselves, this is a waste of my time. And they're looking at the energy and they're saying, wow, lots and lots of time on the bike, but we don't seem to be going very far. So the second myth that we see in organizations that try to grow faster is they just try to go faster. And they believe that going faster will make them grow faster, and I believe that that's a myth. The third thing out there is logo hunting. And that myth number 3 says that if I go after the biggest names in my area, the biggest brands that are out there, the biggest people in the community or the companies are in the community, by landing them, I will wind up getting some sort of a halo effect. Well, XYZ company uses us, so PDQ company, you should use us as well. And so by putting a lot of energy in just after a big brand name only because they're a brand name or only because they've got a lot of employees or only because they have a large amount of net worth, without some strategy that says that that halo effect is going to go out to other companies or other individuals that are of like characteristics, winds up getting you maybe one company, but you don't get the impact more broadly. Because I'm going to tell you right now that the people that are working at Best Buy and that are making the decisions around Best Buy, even though they have lots of employees, don't think they're the same as an organization that owns a lot of gas stations. They think that their people are different, their problems are different, the census of the use of the benefits is going to be different, and so therefore you don't get that halo effect to spread out. You have to be very careful for the logo hunting. And then finally, what I see as a mistake on our myth out there is the idea that we're going to go sell that which we don't have, selling out of the empty wheelbarrow. And we'll say, well, you know, it's a high-quality problem to have a very interested customer out there. We're going to find out what their needs are, and then we're going to come back to the offices. We're going to reach out to all of our partners and see if they can't help us fill up that wheelbarrow with the solution. And by doing that, you create an expectation on the part of your partners that they've got a viable prospect, which means that they're saying to themselves, okay, I'll spend time and energy on creating that solution for you, and they're expecting that you're going to bring that back, but you really don't have a customer. You have a prospect who stated a potential need, and now you're trying to backfill into that empty wheelbarrow with their time and energy. Do that a couple times, and again, they discount you, they downsize you, they put your emails as a B or a C priority because their answer is, this is always a lot of effort and a lot of energy. Internally, you create this sense of a field of dreams, right? Build it and they will come. So we'll create this solution where we say to folks, okay, well, let's go get a bunch of these products together and let's go see if the marketplace wants it. I see all 4 of these myths happen in organizations that want to grow rapidly and also professionals who want to sell a portfolio quickly. And when they do those, they're really creating mistakes because they are not ready to go out in the marketplace and to win. Let me tell you the 5 best practices of what it means to win in big sales. And I'll tell you the first one of those is focus. Now, you've heard focus for a long time. I've talked about it in some of my other webinars. But I'm going to go back that my experience has been with 700 some odd companies and my own personal background is that you grow faster when you go after fewer. When you really pick up, not that we're a company or a brokerage or me as a personal individual salesperson has background in a variety of products and services and tell me what your problem is. That's a consultative sales approach. But instead you go after and say, look, I understand your market segment, your industry, the size of your organization. I really know a lot about that particular area. Let's talk about those products, services, issues, concerns, regulatory impact, risk management issues that are just about people like you. A retail environment is different than a manufacturing environment, which is different than an agricultural environment. And when we go in and say, tell me what your problems are, tell me what your pain is, tell me what keeps you up at night, and I go to any one of those 3 different groups, you're going to be discounted because you're not focused. They're saying to themselves, he or she doesn't know about my business. They're just a general agent brokering a deal. They're not a business trusted advisor helping me to solve a problem. So the best companies that grow rapidly out there have a focus that starts on what is your area of authority and expertise. Second issue, and we talked about this at the first webinar, and that is that you have to solve the real problem. You know, when you sell little things to little people, when you sell small contracts and et cetera, well, then you're just brokering, you're just a source to a particular product that could be gotten by someone else. They either like you better, know you better, feel like they owe you a favor, or you were referred by a friend. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with that business. That's good business to get. But that's transactional. It's commodity. And you're not trading on any real value. You're trading on trust. And very, very important to establish trust. Very important to have trust. But as you go up the food chain of the size of deals that you're going to do business on, you're going to need trust plus other things. And one of those things is, can you talk to me and my other internal trusted advisors? So if you're talking to the owner of a business, or you're talking to the CEO or COO or CFO, can you have the conversation with the people in HR, in finance, in operations, in technology about their issues around time, money, and risk? And if you go back to our other webinars, I talked about the importance about speaking about time, money, and risk, not just the features and unique benefits and history of your firm, but really talking about what are their problems unique to their industry and their marketplace. Solve the real issue, and we talked about the fact that the real issue that we solve has a lot more to do with risk than anything else. And the ability to be seen as a risk provider rather than a policy salesperson is critical to establishing yourself as a trusted advisor. So that's the second of the best practices for landing large sales, is to solve the real issue. When we're together and we're spending time together at InsureFest, I dive down deep into this and really talk about how do you change the language of the conversation of solving a real issue. There's an expression that I've adopted, and I really, really like it, and that is you get sent to whom you sound like. And when we have the language of frontline buyers instead of executive buyers, we spend our time being commoditized in the conversation. You want to be sent to whom you sound like. You want to sound like someone who has unique insights and understanding of the owner, CEO, COO, CFO. That's the place you want to be. That's the conversational level that you want to be at. So the third of these is the idea of establishing a bigger buyer's table. Right now I'm working on my next book that will come out in January, and I did an awful lot of primary research with a number of different firms. And one of the things that just was confirming, and I didn't know it at the time, is that 85%, all right, of the accounts out there in the marketplace right now, those groups who are making 85% of the commercial decisions that are being made 5 years from now will be made without the involvement of a sales rep. Now, let me say that again. Think towards the future and understand that 85% in the future are going to be those individuals who are going to make a decision without the involvement of a salesperson. So if that's the case, how are the rest of the folks going to make their 15% of the decisions that are significant and important to us? Well, they're going to make them with more than double the number of people involved in the process than are being used right now. Let me say that again. In the last 7 years, the number of people involved in making a buying decision on a commercial basis has doubled. It's anticipated in the next 5 years it may double again. For you to sell larger accounts, for you to be involved with bigger choices, you have to be prepared that your buyers are going to bring more people to the conversation and more people to the table. The world is going to separate. The 85% are going to be the transactional buyers. The 15% are going to be the strategic buyers. And the strategic buyers are going to have more people at the table. And for you to be successful at that larger table, you have to be prepared with your own team to bring into that conversation. Otherwise, you will be transactional. Now, what's it mean to be transactionalized out? Well, it doesn't mean that everybody's going to go online and buy their insurance, or they're going to buy their investment products, or they're going to buy everything, but it does mean that they will use RFP processes, RFQ processes, reverse auctions. They will use independent brokers. And when I say brokers, I really mean consultants to go ahead and handle those folks out there in the marketplace that are offering a product or service. And they will keep themselves distant from the actual purchasing process. Very critical to understand that to be successful, you're going to need to not only be able to manage a bigger buyer's table, but to invite one. Fourth, the biggest companies out there that are landing the bigger business and growing faster know more about their customers' marketplace than their customers do. Let me say that again. They know more about their customers' marketplaces than their customers do. It's to be a trusted advisor is not to advise about your products and services. It's to be a trusted advisor is to advise them about their market share and their business approach. Now, I understand we're not going to be marketing professionals for a variety of these industries, but we do have to be risk specialists for their industry. And so we have to speak to them about what will gain them market share, what will gain them margin, what will make them more cost efficient as in reference to their competitors. Not us compared against our competitors, but them compared against their competitors. We have to think like them. And finally, that idea of hunting heavy. If you have the confidence that you really do understand your market segment, you are at that senior level decision maker, you're ready to go hunt inside of that bigger buyer's table, you have to bring a big team with you. Now, when I say a big team, that can be done by conference call, that can be done by webinar, that can be done through a variety of materials and experiences, but you have to bring a big offering into the conversation if you want to be successful. Too often what we do is we make the choice to bring just a little bit, as much as we think is necessary, but not too much because I don't want to spend all of my resources in one hunt. And I'm going to tell you right there, that is a recipe to finish in second place. The companies who hunt heavy win more often. I was recently working with a company who was out in the marketplace. They were selling an enormous deal. And what came back in the post-event feedback after they had won the deal was that they had brought, my client had brought more resources to the table faster than anyone else. Now, you think to yourself, well, gosh, why didn't the other guys bring this? And I will tell you it's because they got trapped into this discussion of how much is enough. And instead of bringing all they could, they brought as much as they thought they needed, and they bet poorly. If you're going to hunt, you have to have the confidence to hunt heavy. So for us, we really have a chance when we're going to go out in the marketplace to grow faster, to go further, if we narrow our focus, right? If we make certain that we talk the language of the buyer, select our targets, and assemble a team to go get those opportunities out there. I'm looking forward to InsureFest here in November. I think it's going to be great out in San Francisco. Awesome venue for it. And we're going to be talking about how do we drill down on all of these into real language, real questions, real tactical, on-the-ground, gritty stuff, and then how to implement those best practices of trusted advisors so that we can use kind of the agency-level sales techniques that work. So we've had a couple minutes to talk about a little bit about background. Let's open up for questions and answers at this point and see if there's any questions from anybody on the session that I might be able to provide some insight to.
For sure. Great. Thank you, Tom. I'd like to now, as Tom said, open it up to questions. If you haven't done so already, please submit your questions in the right-hand toolbar, and we will get those coming. One of the first questions that we got, Tom, is how do you counter or combat that wheelbarrow mentality? What can you do, steps maybe before, pre going out to see the client or post? How do you do that to where you don't use the wheelbarrow mentality?
Good question. So let's just remind everybody that wheelbarrow mentality is that, you know, if we're service in our mindset, we go out and we listen to our customers, we're very good, we ask questions, and then they tell us all of their needs, and then we come back and we try to fill up the wheelbarrow with products and services and approaches. And so that's a service mentality. So I want to be valuable to my customers. So it's not that the characteristic of wanting to be valuable is bad, but here's the piece that I think we can do. You can say to them, let's take this in 3 buckets or 2 buckets. Bucket 1 are those things that are probably absolutely critical for you right now to reduce your risk, to approach what your cost structures are, to put you in a more competitive situation in your marketplace, whether that's for labor or decreasing your overhead expense or whatever. That's the immediacy bucket. Then there's this second bucket of needs that you've talked about right now. I think we should come back after we've addressed the immediate issues that you've got. Let's take those second, longer-term issues that might have to do with your longer range plans and et cetera, and let me assemble that strategy for bucket number 2. By segmenting out bucket 1 and bucket 2, you can take those things that we already have and you can bring in with confidence and deliver upon, and then you can come back and evaluate how would we want to approach and what's the best approach for solving bucket 2. Nice thing is that you're paid to learn because you're selling them that which you already have, and you'll know more after working with them with greater detail from the inside as a provider to them, how to best scope, scale, and partner to create that second bucket, kind of filling up that wheelbarrow that maybe wasn't quite as full. So that would be one approach.
No, that's great, Tom. The next question we got is how does a producer survive financially while applying these big hunt sales method? Since these take a little bit more time to through the process, how can a newer, maybe a broker who's only been around a couple of years use these techniques to win now and build for the future?
Another really good question. It's a totally valid question, by the way. If you're a new producer in there, you probably have got almost that, that optimism, right? That almost pathological desire to go ahead and grow, and yet, within a month, 2 months, 3 months, you've got bills to pay, and so the urgent and the important wind up going into competition. Here's my recommendation: just like you would look at a portfolio of investments, I would look at your book of business and prospects as a portfolio, where if you're new into the marketplace, you need to be spending a larger portion on transactional sales, a smaller portion on mid-sized sales, and a smaller portion yet on large sales. We use as kind of a guideline, kind of that 60-30-10. Now that's for brand new entrants into the marketplace. What that means, that 60 is for the baseline transactional business that's out there that you can go and will pay you up front to get involved in the marketplace. We'll give you a baseline understanding of all the products and services that are offered inside of your firm. It will also give you contacts out in the marketplace that maybe can elevate you into that second tier of business, that mid-sized level of business. You're going to go spend 30% of your time in that mid-sized level of business, going after the opportunities in there. You're going to learn that language of the larger decision maker. You're going to become more effective at using a team on the inside of your own company, and as well as your alliance partners and your product providers and those kinds of people. You'll get better utilization out of that. And then you're going to spend 10% of your time going after the big whales, those really big opportunities out there. Now, that's your first 18 to 36 months in the business, all right? Now, what happens is that you start to intentionally and specifically slide your allocation of time and resources to move out of the transactional and move further up the food chain. If you've been in this business for 10 years, you are well over 30, maybe as much as 60% of your time is up in the whale hunters, and a larger, and then a portion down in the middle-sized accounts, and you're probably doing very little down in the transactional accounts. You should be doing very little down in the transactional accounts. Those people that you're helping in the transactional accounts, more than likely, they're referrals from past loyal customers, and you're taking care of them as much out of a sense of responsibility and loyalty to your customers as you are out of compensation and commission. So that's the way that moves. It's a portfolio, and what I see people who make mistakes is they don't look at their time as if it was money. They don't say to themselves, I have $100,000 to invest this year, and what's going to give me the best return? What they do is they just simply say, I'm going to get on the bicycle and I'm going to pedal faster. Eventually you get tired. You have to have a strategy for your investment, And I've just given you kind of one that has to do with the appropriate alignment of your portfolio of time against your portfolio of opportunities.
No, very, very well said, Tom. Now, back to, and kind of pivoting on that, with regards to focus, in that first 18 months, does that help you establish that focus that you spoke about?
Yes, it does. I think the thing is that, we come from a history of, for 20 years, 10 years, however long it's been, and way back where we were generalists. We were encouraged to be product specialists, understand everything about your product, understand everything about your carriers, understand everything about what's offered, what's going on in the marketplace, because we wanted to be generalists, because we wanted to get as many opportunities into our pipeline as possible. Instead of walking in and saying, you know what, I understand middle-sized manufacturers between $50 million and $500 million in size. You got this big of an asset base, you got this big of a distribution channel, you got this many employees, you got this much of a record, and because I understand all of that better than anybody else does, I really am worthy of being your trusted advisor on how you handle your risk management. I remember the movie, I don't know if you remember, David, the movie, or Rob, if you remember the movie Taken, right, with Liam Neeson. And there's the scene in there where he's talking to somebody, he says, I don't have it, and Liam Neeson says, I don't have any money, I don't have anything to give you, but I have a certain number of special skills, and I'm very, very good at them. And so if you go ahead and give me my daughter back, I won't use them to kill you, right? Well, that's fundamentally what you're saying in this particular situation, not the violence part of it, but the part that says, look, I don't know everything about everything, but I know a lot about this area right here, and it is in your best interest to use a specialist like me to go ahead and help you solve this. Otherwise, what you're going to get is going to be a product broker, not a trusted advisor. And you will not be best served if you just get a product broker. You will be best served if you get a trusted advisor.
That's great, and a great movie, by the way. Well, I want to thank Tom for spending the time with us today and providing us with his insight. It was great. I hope all of you have gotten a few pieces of information out of it, and we're very excited to have Tom presenting at InsureFest 2014. This presentation will be on agency sales techniques that work. InsureFest is November 6th through the 8th at the Sheraton Fisherman Wharf in San Francisco. For more information and to register for the conference, please visit www.insurefest.org. And that concludes our webinar for today. Thank you for participating.